This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome, everybody, to another podcast recording. You're listening to Doc and Jock, and this podcast episode is surely going to be one of the weirder ones we record. As we're recording this, I'm waiting my appearance on 97.1 The Ticket, talking about being a diehard Lions fan and wanting to lift the curse that's been over this organization for damn near 60 years. And a lot of weird things are happening with myself, the network, and I've shared it along the way if you've been following on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. But I'll open by introducing my co-host, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. I guess this week I know the answer. What's up, cuz? And it's me.
Yeah,
the Doc.
You're a movie star now, huh? Or a TV star, at least.
I don't understand. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would be cast in a television production. So what that means is I went for an interview. I kind of talked about myself, talked about the network, talked about being a crazy Detroit Lions fanatic. And if you look at it, that's really what I am, because you don't record 200 straight weeks talking majority about the Detroit Lions if you're not crazy about the local team. And so, I'm going into it. I thought, okay, this will be fun. I'll go check out a meeting. They'll never call me back because, as much as I portray a big ego, I really am, a fatalist and really humble and don't think that anything good.
What are you talking about? I'm surprised there's room for me in this room right now. I mean, honestly, your head is ginormous.
It's about to kick off, bro. You know it.
Like, if anybody couldn't have had this happen to them, it was probably you. Like, you did not need this because your head's already swollen as it is.
If you listen to the Motor City Sports Rant or Tigers Talk this week, they all said the same thing. Oh my God, I don't want to be Adam this week after John got cast. Oh my Lord. Because that means that I was selected. I was chosen, the chosen one. And I don't know what's going to come of it. I still assume that they're going to edit me out or distort my face or do something creative where they're going to make me look like, somebody completely different. But in the end, I'm going to go have fun with it, and that's the attitude I took was, let's just keep pushing the ceiling, because with this project, it's allowed us to do so many wild things, and I said to myself, okay, I think the cap is going to cover an NCAA tournament. I don't think it's going to get much better than this, but is there a chance, a television screen that could say my name and Detroit Sports Podcast Network on a television network that people watch? Come on now. This is crazy.
It's possible. But, here's the thing, right? I mean, I'm not trying to bash you here, but they probably are gonna have to pixelate that face.
Yeah, no,
I don't know if that's a face for television. I mean, you're a good looking guy, ish.
You're a dick.
I am, but you know what I'm saying. No, dude, I'm really happy for you. I think this is gonna be awesome. I think it's gonna be really good. I can't wait for them to sit there and launch this episode.
We're going to have a party. We're going to have a gathering. We got to get together and just be like, what on earth are they going to say? How are they going to portray me? What are they going to edit? Are they going to edit me well? I have no idea what's going on.
Great. It's going to be fun.
But the way I look at it is you just do it. And of course, everybody's like, are you getting paid? Or what's going on with this? I'm like, no, I'm not getting paid. I didn't even ask a single question about money, because the free exposure that this is providing, knowing that people can look to Detroit Podcast when things are happening in town before they happen. I told everybody earlier in the week that if you want to be a part of it, and I think that's what is also important, is we like doing stuff for me, stuff for you, and you know that. I've, called all around and said, put this guy on, this guy's great. And you're like, what the hell are you doing, bro? I'm like, look, there is a chance. I'm not asking, I'm kicking the door down. But at the same time, whenever we get a chance to do fun stuff like this, it always seems to also coincide with allowing people that support us to have a chance to be a part of it. And I always want that to be part of what we do, is that, hey, if the Doc's going to go be part of something, then if there's a chance for us to go on Twitter and be like, hey, you can be a part of it too, I'll always take advantage and take advantage of that. And that's what I like to do, is that I want to be able to give back to those that have made this fun, because the Twitter page, the podcast, how we're being portrayed and what's going on with the network. Look, some news was made, minor news was made on Tuesday with this kid, this traitor, went to Michigan State
I
graduation.
think troll is more apt.
No, we talked to him now. So we talked to this young man. So
here's the thing. I figured you would totally get a kick out of what he did and how he did it, because that's right up your alley. You're the biggest troll I know.
Listen to Two Bad Hombres this Saturday, where some props are given. We do some light ribbing, but minor news is made, makes the papers, right? So what do? Boom, go on the internet, and just like that, I'm like, hey, do you want to come on our podcast? And within 4 minutes, the guy, Tyler, messaged me back. Sure, I'd love to come on. A prominent figure in Detroit. All these events coming to town. WrestleMania, Final Four, stuff like that's been here. That just doesn't show up to Detroit. There's a commission that has to make bids. Vito booked a great guest, the director of the Detroit Sports Commission, sharing stories about how this stuff goes down. And you're going to hear a lot of great interviews on this network. And it's all been provided because of the fact we got strong support. And I'm really appreciative of those that have been really cool with us. So, hey, if we get a chance to give back, we'll always do that. And it's going to be a fun time. No doubt about it.
Most definitely, man. From two dudes in a basement with a laptop that hardly ever worked.
To the big screen? Come on.
To you being on TV now.
Listen, if it gets even to the cutting room floor, at least I'm going to be filmed. I know that for a fact.
Right.
They're filming the doc, talking sports.
It's like bad porn. I mean, at least it's on film, right?
At least it's on film. So we'll see how this is portrayed, because there is a chance you go, oh man, am I going to be portrayed like a weird reality star? But look, I know who I am. You know who I am.
You are a weird reality TV star.
There you go. That's my cap. Well, I got to do better then. Listen, if I can get on TV, then you never know. I could be in a movie.
You're like the Macomb County Arabic or Lebanese version of Kim Kardashian.
There you go.
That's what you are.
Oh man, good stuff. Well, what do we got on tap on this fine podcast?
Well, we've got a Docs in session. That's gonna be that middle portion there. I got a whole bunch of questions for you, and I want to pick your brain. Of course, we're gonna do the wrestling. SmackDown and Raw both just they're just there at this point. Let's be honest. And there's some good things that are possibly on tap in wrestling. Hopefully, they're building towards that. But there are some bad things that are going on right now. So we'll cover all of that. But first off, I want to kick this podcast off talking about your Detroit Tigers. So over the weekend, you basically seen the implosion of K-Rod. This guy who is one of the best all-time closers, just doesn't have the goods anymore, isn't able to sit there and get the job done. Tigers come out, they kind of shuffle their bullpen around a little bit. Right off rip, it looks like this may pay dividends, but I kind of want to pick your brain here, and I want to discuss whether or not you believe the Tigers closer is on this team, or is it located within this franchise going forward?
I'm always of the mantra, and I think a lot of people, coaches, managers, organizations need to adopt this mantra. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Wasn't it obvious that Justin Wilson was performing? And I think a lot of these coaches and literally, they sit around, they have these meetings, they have these discussions, and it probably gets to the point where it's so finely tuned and so finely explored that they're overthinking it. Justin Wilson was a guy that was pitching pretty well, only had one real hiccup this season. Okay, you saw it. I mean, we all joke around because anytime the Detroit Tigers blow a save or there's an issue, we tend to hype it up a little bit. But it was obvious to the naked eye, to podcasters like us, to anybody watching the Detroit Tigers, that Justin Wilson maybe needed to be put in that role. I feel like Brad Ausmus really caused this firestorm to kick off, and he lit the gas by not only, deciding to use K-Rod Saturday. Did you not see in the 8th inning on Saturday's game versus Oakland how dominant Justin Wilson was? Why not? You don't have to stick to this robotic, strategic formula of 7th, 8th, 9th. Justin Wilson on Saturday could have pitched the 9th inning, you get the win. No. Okay, fine. You saw what K-Rod did on Saturday. Epic meltdown. The fans are on edge. The ball club is also teetering being around 500, that this has to be, looked at and taken care of. You come back the next day on Sunday and you reinsert K-Rod after having pitched damn near 20 pitches on Saturday. Justin Wilson comes out again in the 8th inning, does a great job, looks like a closer. You reinsert K-Rod and it blows up in his face. And it sets off a firestorm for damn near 100 hours of people ranting, raving, screaming like what is going on. It put the focus on the entire team on that bullpen. And then you just go look, okay, fine. That's what it takes for this organization to make a move, is epic collapses that not only is impacting the team, it's costing you games early in the season. You can't recognize that? That's what it takes for you to yank a player, is to have an epic meltdown? Ausmus is paid to make these moves in advance. That's what he's paid to do. He's paid to make the decision on Sunday not to put in K-Rod, because that was likely to happen. And then you go to Tuesday's game. Dude, the offense shows up versus Arizona. You're crushing. Justin Upton with a massive home run helps to add runs. And then, boom, you bring in Justin Wilson. You could argue in a 4-run game, why do you bring him in? But you see what a closer's supposed to do. Just throw strikes. K-Rod was not able to do that. And yes, the closer's on this team. His name is Justin Wilson. And you lock it down. K-Rod should not be inserted in this lineup. If he's utilized to close any games before June, it's going to be a firestorm. People are going to be nervous.
Do you think that, so are you saying that it's basically Brad Ausmus's fault that they ended up blowing the games over the weekend and that K-Rod imploded?
Exactly. His job is to protect his players. He's a guy that's revered. Oh, this is a player's manager. He set K-Rod up to fail. Obviously, they know in the organization, unless they're totally ignorant, that there's something up with K-Rod. Something's up. His velocity, his command is not exactly at the K-Rod level. He's supposed to know that before we see it on the field. So the way you do that is you protect him for a couple of days. You shield him and you tell him, look, we got a day off Monday. He's not going to be available on Sunday. And whoever's out there, whoever's available, it's not K-Rod. And then you still have a chance to win the game because, I know we're looking at it in hindsight, but I think it's also Brad Ausmus's job to prevent fires. Wouldn't you agree that this was a nasty media storm in the last 3 days, just talking about how devastatingly awful this bullpen is? Now people are like, I'm tired of talking about how awful and craptastic this bullpen is. Get me the results. What are you going to do to fix it? And I think they needed to keep people a little bit at bay in terms of, coming to the team with stakes going, fix this bullpen. But right now, I think the majority of fans are at the level of, we're tired of this nonsense. We're tired of having a bullpen that's garbage, and it's come to a head. People now are in the phase of fix the damn problem.
See, this is why I think you're a little bit wrong in just your whole point of view with this. Now, Brad Ausmus, I agree, knew something was up with K-Rod, and you could just tell. We could tell. We sat there and we discussed the issues with K-Rod for almost 2 weeks now, talking about how he doesn't have the velocity, he can't really locate, he's going to eventually cost you and blow you games. So if I'm Brad Ausmus, I much rather have this issue with K-Rod get done early, get done often enough to where I can sit there and I can say, look, he just doesn't have it. It's time for us to move on. I think Brad Ausmus gave K-Rod enough rope to hang himself, and he did it on the road. I think if they did it here in Detroit, the media storm would have been much higher.
Oh.
It would have been it would have just been blown totally out of proportion. It'd been a huge story. Since they were on the road, it wasn't as big of a deal because how difficult was it for you to stay up and watch those games? I mean, look, the West Coast road trips are very difficult for baseball fans to sit there, stay up, and watch these games because they're stretching into the wee hours of the morning. And look, I'll be honest with you. I had trouble. I would sit there and I'd get into the 8th inning and I'm trying to keep my eyelids open with toothpicks and I'm falling asleep. I'm waking up and I have to check everything out on my phone the next morning just to see what happened, just to make sure that K-Rod didn't blow it. So I think if it was here, I think the way Ausmus did it, he protected K-Rod as much as he could. He gave him enough rope to hang himself. And if it was all done here, it would have been blown way out of proportion. So I think the way Ausmus handled it, you almost deserve to give him kudos for it. Now, I think the bigger issue is, yes, we do have an issue with the bullpen. It's been going on now for 10, 12, 15 years. They've not been able to ever get it right. And I think a lot of this falls on Iyla. Brad Ausmus can only sit there and play the players he has. And you got a guy who's a 7th inning guy, an 8th inning guy, and then you got your 9th inning guy. You're going to sit there and you're going to roll those guys out in those innings to do what they have to do. And I agree with you. Justin Wilson has the capability of being able to sit there and pitch more than just one inning. He can give you an inning and 2/3. He can give you 2 innings if you need to. Brad Ausmus believes that Justin Wilson's most effective role for this team is pitching 1 inning because he doesn't want to tire out his arm. That being said, I'm fine with it. All right, but the bigger issue falls at the feet of Iyla. He's the one who put this bullpen together. He's the one who didn't go out and make any moves during the offseason. And this is why I'm screaming for a trade right now, because I don't believe Justin Wilson can carry this team in the closer's role for the rest of the season. I think you've got offense that is pumping on all cylinders. And I say that with Miguel Cabrera missing large portions of the season already. JD Martinez hasn't even been in at all this season. One of your outfielders has missed a lot of time because he took a baseball to the face. So you've got guys on this roster who have missed a substantial amount of time. Don't even get me started on Victor Martinez, who's been hit or miss for forever, and it's been more misses now since the season has started. So you've got an offense that's churning out runs. You're one of the best in all of the big leagues here, and you've got a pitching staff that I feel is competent. I think Justin Verlander's outstanding. I think Michael Fulmer, you're getting what you got last year from the guy. I think Daniel Norris has taken strides. I think Matt Boyd's taken strides as well. I think your one big question mark is Jordan Zimmerman right now. He's the one who's probably the most frustrating out of your starting pitching. And now you look at your bullpen, and it's a complete dumpster fire. It's just a garbage can full of kerosene, and somebody's just sat there and threw a lit cigarette into it, and it's just going kaboom right now. So you have to address this bullpen, and I just don't think Justin Wilson can carry the load going forward for the rest of the season, especially if you have a team that looks like it might be special. You need to go out, you need to make a move. That's why I was sitting there screaming for Calvin Herrera last week, and I still think you need to go out and you need to get this guy. If it's going to cost you 2-3 prospects, I'm fine with it. It's all about winning now. That's what this team's been built upon for the last 5 seasons, and this was the whole gusto for going for it for one more time. You sit there, you trade for Calvin Herrera, you give some things up, and you know what? You go for it one last time, and if you can't make it happen, if you can't do it, you know what? You sit there, you trade off everything, and you start like you basically build like Kansas City did. Kansas City was able to take a bunch of prospects and make it to the World Series and win it. One last time, if you can't do it, then do that, and I'm cool with it.
See, here's the thing with this bullpen. Obviously, many people are commenting like yourself regarding the reverberating effects. And I think it speaks more to what my main point was regarding Brad Ausmus, is you don't trust that he's going to utilize Justin Wilson properly. You don't need to use him in Tuesday's game with a 4-run lead. If used properly, Justin Wilson can be a fine closer. But the problem is there are no other reliable bullpen arms that can get you where you need to go. So the issue that people are seeing is, yes, now you've reshifted the roles where you need basically, and you know what the organization is doing, like we said on last week's podcast, a combination of Green and Hardy in the 7th, Alex Wilson in the 8th, Justin Wilson in the 9th is ideal. The problem is you can't do that every day.
You're right.
The issue is you're going to need, the onus is out. The call to action, the call to arms is now going to be out there. Which 2 guys, additionally, besides those 4 guys, are going to help this team? They've paraded everybody from Toledo to try. Kyle Ryan, not too effective. They're trying minor league talent to see what's going on. They ideally would like Jimenez and Rondon to be a combination of relief, but now they're nicked up and they're not consistent.
And Rondon is probably the biggest culprit with why this bullpen is in the condition it is. Okay, Rondon for years now, we've heard about how he can gas it up and how he can blow it by you, and he's basically it's just been a waiting period for him to come in and take that role as the closer. It's just we've just been setting up. And the way that this bullpen was originally constructed, if anything happened to K-Rod, it was supposed to be the Rondon show. Rondon shows up 40 pounds overweight and didn't do anything in the offseason, didn't work on anything, comes in and is an absolute gas can up there. A lot of this falls on Rondon just not being a professional, not being professionally sound in his craft, not taking it serious, not working hard enough, not working diligently. Do you remember when he got sent home from the team because he was such a distraction, because he wasn't acting professional in the clubhouse? I mean, what is it going to take for this guy? Honestly, he has now sabotaged this bullpen by his action or inactions. And that's a huge issue for this team going forward. And you're right. You're going to need at least another arm or 2. And I don't understand necessarily why you pitched your closer in a 4-run game on Tuesday night. I get it, right? I understand. But at the same point, Justin Wilson's in this brand new role. This is probably the prime opportunity to see what he's got. Go out there, let him pitch, and see what you can get, and try to get him as comfortable as possible. You know, look, if I'm Justin Wilson and this is my first time going as a closer for this team, I'd much rather have a 4-run lead than it be a 1-run game. Because if I have any hiccups, if I have any slip-ups, I've got a cushion. I can sit there and I can make things work for my team. I can come away with a win, with a save possibly. So I kind of understand what Ausmus did here. I don't necessarily think it was the correct approach, but I understand what he did here because he's trying to sit there and he's trying to protect his now closer.
So now the question that we all got to kind of debate and look at here, and it's probably one of the most important issues with the Tigers, is what do you do with K-Rod now? What do we do with the guy that you've said, okay, you've basically stripped him of his job? You can't, that's why people say with quarterbacks, with goaltenders, you can't make it a circus. You can't make it where you just yank them. You're the closer, you're not the closer. You, in essence, have, for the first time, I believe in what I've been reading, the first time yanked him from his job. He started seasons as the eighth inning guy and not been named the starter at the beginning of the year, but I believe in his storied career, Francisco Rodriguez has never had his job stripped. So now it's kind of going to have reverberating effects on his confidence, on the organization, on his teammates. And now you see, too, is that you don't want to start causing ripples and wrinkles and arguments among the team, because I think they realize and they see that, whoa, Justin Wilson, solid left-hander, got some heat, and can control the baseball. That's the guy. What do you do with K-Rod? Do you put him in the eighth inning and risk, being up 4-3, needing to get to the ninth inning and not getting that chance because K-Rod makes it interesting? Unfortunately, the problem is, and I think it's tough when you're 35 and 36 and you're getting up there in age, a closer that's going to throw and feature a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, a lot of professional hitters are going to be able to do some things with it. I don't think it's going to be effective.
You're giving him a lot of credit. His fastball is somewhere right around 88. His off speed's 84.
Exactly.
That's not enough of a difference if you're a closing pitcher and you're relying on two pitches to sit there and win you ball games at the end of the night.
Yeah,
it just isn't going to happen.
What do we do now?
At this point, the only thing you can do, you can treat him almost like you were treating Sanchez, right? You use him in a little bit of like a long relief part of the game where maybe it's kind of getting away from you, or if you've got a huge lead, you can sit there, you can roll him out there, give him an inning or two of work, and just try to sit there and maybe stretch him out, maybe help him regain some of that confidence. His big issue is he just doesn't have it anymore. He can't throw a fastball. Honestly, when your fastball is coming in at 88 miles an hour, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. And when your off speed's 84 miles an hour, it's not good enough either. It's all at this point in his career. Unless he reinvents himself and he becomes Greg Maddux and he can sit there and pinpoint
this is bad.
Where the ball is going to go, yeah, Adam, it is bad. He's not going to be effective. He just isn't going to be effective. He has to have precise control, pinpoint accuracy, and he's going to have to sit there and hopefully be able to either dial it up or dial his off speed down some more to where that pitch looks totally different. And at this point in his career, he's not going to be able to do that. So you use him in games where it's either already getting away from you or you have a monster lead where he can come out and he can just kind of, hopefully get 3 outs and doesn't hurt your team.
At this point in time, my fandom, I can't have hope anymore.
I agree with you.
No more hope.
If me and you were both running this team, I think we both would have got rid of Sanchez and we would have got rid of K-Rod, and I'd have already made trades.
But I think with this situation, it's not a short leash. It's not. There's evidence.
There's no leash. I think you just have to sit there and keep him on the bench. He's a break in case of emergency only type player. You break him out of his glass and you throw him in there, right? If you're sitting there trying to salvage an arm, right? If the Wilson twins can't go, or Blaine Hardy or Shane Green can't go, because remember how you just said you need at least another pitcher or two. So say those guys have pitched 4 nights in a row and you're up by 10 runs. Go ahead, throw him in. Hopefully he gets you out of an inning. And I understand what you're saying. At this point, you don't want hope. You want results. And he just, at this point in his career, I don't know if you're going to get the results that you want necessarily. And that's the issue.
No doubt about it. That's the issue. The focal point for this team needs to be getting wins, racking up as many wins as possible, because the offense can carry this team. And so what's one way you can fix the bullpen is just have a mindset that, hey, if we're up 2 runs, not enough. You have to get it to 3 like you did versus Arizona. You got to extend it to 4. You can't make mistakes like Castellanos made on third base where you get yourself, thrown out with the third out and a huge batter up to bat. You can't make those kind of mental mistakes when the line, there's a fine line of winning and losing. And so with this team, we can't pinpoint the biggest weakness on the team, the bullpen, but there are a lot of strengths. We cannot discount the strengths on this team, and you just got to really start to address the bullpen so that the strengths can be highlighted, because you're right. There is something with that offense and there is something with the camaraderie and the togetherness and the never say die attitude of the ball club that I like. That's what keeps me watching the games when they're damn near 3 hours long, game in, game out. It's a tough watch, but in the end, though, if the bullpen's going to perform, if they solidify and they stop inserting players that are ineffective, then I think we have an opportunity. And in future podcasts, we're going to get into it because I think the fixes are available if you maybe add a couple more pieces. And there was a great articles, written by Will Birchfield from 97 on the Ticket where he said, look, it's time to go all in. This is one and done. You may be willing to mortgage the next 5 years if you have a chance to win now. Do you think that way? Do we think the Tigers should go down that route? I think we should think about it in that what is the timeline in which we'll decide how much the Tigers should invest in winning? Because if they don't, the worst thing this organization could do is stand pat. They cannot do that. This year is going to be a sentinel year. You either go forward and say, okay, we're going to start building, adding minor league talent, and say, look, this is not a winning organization anymore. We're going to start rebuilding now. Or you say, look, I push my chips to the table. Here is what we're going to do. We're going to add 2 or 3 players, give up maybe a Matt Manning, give up a JD Martinez, give up somebody that maybe is an everyday player now, and say, hey, if we can add a couple more bullpen arms and a couple more productive players, you might have a chance to make a run in the postseason. You just got to get in. So it's going to be fun to talk about.
You're unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I've been sitting here screaming this for like 3 weeks now, but because this guy puts it in print on 97.1, he gets more credibility than me. I've been your damn co-host for almost 4 years. I've been saying the same thing. This team looks special right now. You've got an offense that is hitting the ball all over the park, and it's leaving half the time, and then you've got a pitching rotation. Your starters look dominant almost every single night. They're at least giving you quality starts. It's your bullpen that's killing you. You need to make a trade or two. Sit there, strengthen up that bullpen. Go get Calvin Herrera.
Yeah.
Go pick him up. That guy throws mid-90 heat. He can sit there and dial it down with the changeup. He's got pitches to work with. Kansas City's just garbage this year. Kansas City can't win to save their lives. They're not going anywhere. You've traded within the division before. You can do it again. If it costs you a prospect or 3, knock yourself out. Who the hell cares? It's all about winning right now. Go for it. One last time.
Okay.
Do the gusto.
Well, I think everyone that's listened to this podcast throughout the run knows that I was on Team Sell. And I think that if you want to have the debate real quick, I think that I saw the article, not that I said I agreed with it. I think that was just a point of reference that I could say that, the debate is now being had again, realizing at this point in time, can we make that decision? I say no. I say that you start the process of rebuilding, that they should have did it 2 years ago. I say that if you do that, it's the ultimate risk because if you don't succeed, which is getting the ring, then you've set the organization back another 6 years because it's going to cost a lot. Because it's not going to be cheap to go all in. It's not going to be an all in, if you want to use a poker reference, for $500 in chips. It's going to be an all in for $200 million in payroll plus the future of some prospects that you think are going to be needed in the future. So it's not a cheap all in.
Okay,
it's a massively expensive all in. So I don't think you do it.
Okay, well, here's the thing. What do you think this team needs right now? What do you think is going to sit there and help them elevate and raise the bar and really set them apart from?
My answers are unrealistic. The new manager and acquiring an entire new bullpen.
Okay.
So now with that, realistically,
so new managers out of the question, right? That's not going to happen. Okay.
Realistically,
so realistically, what do you feel that they need right now?
Realistically, they need to stand pat and continue to see what they have and evaluate the next 30 games with their reshaped bullpen. See what happens when Jimenez and Rondon.
But you've just said they need 2 more arms in that bullpen.
They need them. But is it going to be Rondon Jimenez? Is it going to be a combination of other guys? Is it going to be an acquired talent? They do need 2 more bullpen arms to be consistent, or they need the bullpen that they currently have to step it up.
See, I don't think you're going to get anything. I think his time spent up here was valuable for him, but I don't think you're going to get anything out of Jimenez this year. Maybe later in the year, but that's far and few between. Okay, Jimenez needs to develop another pitch. He's got one pitch, and guys up here can turn on it. So I think he needs some more time in the minor leagues. It was nice to see him come up, and he did some really good things in a very short amount of time, but he also had some really bad outings. Rondon, I think, is done. I think this organization needs to wash its hands of Rondon. If I am the Tigers, I would sit there and Rondon would be in part of that package to get Calvin Herrera. Just you're basically trading one closer for another closer, and hopefully Kansas City can sit there and rehabilitate this guy. And you know what? If he comes back to bite you in the ass, he comes back and bites you in the ass. That's all there is to it. You need to go out and you need a closer. I don't think you need to really tinker with this starting lineup as far as your guys in the field. I don't think you really need to tinker with your pitching rotation at this point. What you need to do is you need to go out there, you need to make one salient move, and that is get a lockdown closer. Somebody who you can pencil in the ninth, and you know he's going to get you a W. You know he's not going to cost you a game. If you can do that, you can sit there and you can put your guys that you already had, because Alex Wilson was great in the seventh. Justin Wilson was great in the eighth, right? And you go righty-lefty, and then if he's a righty, you go righty again. It's very rare that you ever see a lefty closer. Do you know why? It's because most of the guys at the plate are righties. And when it's a righty-on-righty matchup, it favors the pitcher. So you can do that. And then you've got your guys, you got Shane Green, you got Blaine Hardy, and those guys are great complementary pieces. They can sit there and they can fill in. Shane Green has promise. Shane Green looks good. He's been erratic at times, and that's an issue going forward. He needs to figure it out, whether it's arm slot or whether it's what he's trying to throw. Blaine Hardy, I know generally he has a really elevated ERA, but that guy can come in and he can eat innings for you, and he can get you out of some jams. He does a very good job. He's a great situational pitcher, and he's a complementary piece to this bullpen. I think if you go out, you get Kelvin Herrera, you slot him in as your ninth inning guy, you put the other two guys back in their roles that they were happy with and familiar with and were just killing it with, and then you've got your other two arms that we discussed. The other two guys who can either come in and do spot duty, give you some long relief if you need it. If you need them to do a situational job, they can come in and they can do that too. And bam, instantly, now you're a contender, right? You're not a pretender. You're not one of those teams that were like, well, yeah, they can win the American League Central. No, now you're a contender. You're one of those top 5 to 6 teams that are sitting there contending for a World Series, and that we can sit there and have a legit conversation about them actually winning the damn thing finally.
The only thing that I'll add to finish is the games are too long, man.
Oh, dude.
It is crazy.
It is brutal.
This is something where it's like the average pace is not supposed to be an hour for every 3 innings. You know, let's try to cut it down to 2 hours and 30 minutes. I even got a couple bloggers to respond, and it was like, yeah, the good old days when the games were 2 hours and 25 minutes. These games are pushing 3 and a half, 4 hours. Yes, it's bad because of the bullpen, the offense. It's like it's a grind, man. I'm skipping some games because it's just too long. We got to figure out and talk about how on earth do we fix this baseball problem. My God, with the Tigers. Let's take our first time out. We're going to do Doctors in Session, no doubt, talk about some wrestling in the Doc and Jock Wrestling Report, and I'll share a couple more stories regarding my interaction with George Lopez. You're listening to Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. All right, Adam, let me tell you about our host site, Podomatic. Since we started this project in 2013, we've only uploaded our podcast to one site, and that's Podomatic.com. The reason you ask, why would I use that site? It's easy, user-friendly. We can get our project, our great rants, our great stories that we tell, the weird experiences that we're having on this project. All of that audio would be wasted if we went to a terrible host site, if we didn't get a chance to put our audio up to the internet. And Podomatic.com has been a great site for us in terms of being able to upload our audio and having our stuff listened to via the easiest platform. I mean, it's so simple. And cause it's not only uploading the audio, it's also finding great links to be able to share it with your friends. Imagine if I kept sharing with you day to day on your Facebook wall a post and a link that was broken. Your friends would be like, bro, every time I click that damn link, it sucks. But no, we don't have that. We have a very user-friendly host site, and everybody that's a fan of our show can find it. That's all I would ask for. And if you want to start a brand new podcast and you want to do it easily and you want to work with a host site that's unbelievable, check out Podomatic.com. Because so much going on in the sports world with the NBA playoffs, with the NHL playoffs that have been unbelievable, things going on locally. I'm so excited that this is my week for the Doctors in Session. Hit me up with what you got and what we call the Doctor is in Session.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man, and I'm saying, woo, right here, I'm the man, woo!
So on Tuesday, Kyle Meineke was on the Twitter after hanging out at Lions practice, and he had a few chances to sit there and talk with Ziggy Ansah. And Ziggy basically broke the news to him, saying, hey, I'm going to go to Ndamukong Suh. I'm going to ask him how I should handle these upcoming contract talks with the Lions. So I want to get your thoughts and your reactions as a Lions fan on what you think about Ziggy Ansah taking the advice of Ndamukong Suh.
When I heard that, I was like, oh no, because what do you think?
Chill went down your spine, eh?
Exactly, because what do you think Ndamukong's going to tell Ziggy Ansah? No, yeah, you should take the hometown deal. No, you should definitely work with the Lions and stay with that organization. No, the council, you know what he said. He said, look, there's opportunities out there across this country. It's a great country. Detroit is fine. He'll give the props to the city. It's a great organization. You could stick there. It's on the up and up. But would you rather be a millionaire or a billionaire? And when you talk in that language, Mr. Ansah will be like, excuse me, what are you talking about? Meaning, I came to Miami. Yeah, we're not exactly winning, but my pockets are still, the checks are clearing, but I also get to do endorsements. I also get to be on shows like Ballers and represent my brand. If Ziggy Ansah wants to build a brand, then Detroit's not it. Then Ndamukong Suh will come to the table and say, look, go to the Giants, go to Miami, go to a place that has a market for your talents. So it's all going to be predicated on what he does on the field. If Ziggy Ansah comes out and has one sack, all this talk is nonsense, and then we're going to get him on the cheap because he won't have that demand. But if he's healed, if he is actually 27, then we will actually have a guy.
The truth is, if he's 27,
because I know you saw that there's reports he might be 30. I was going to bring that up with George Lopez too. Is that a report just yesterday? Ziggy Ansah might be 30 years old already. His birth certificate in Ghana. There's some reports that dude's older than what's claiming.
It's like the dude who played in the World Series. He was like 17, but he was claiming he was 12.
Exactly. So if Ziggy Ansah produces 10 sacks and is a superstar, then the value and the market for him is going to go way, way up. And then you're going to have Matthew Stafford commanding a ton of money, Ziggy Ansah commanding a ton of money. When that happens in a cap, unfortunately, then there's little left for maybe a guy that you really want. So hearing the news that Ndamukong Suh is in the ear of Ziggy Ansah, bad news.
I don't know if I said World Series, but I meant Little League World Series if I didn't. All right, moving on. You like Russian imports. I like Russian imports. Generally, they're the famales, and they'll sit there and they'll pour vodka down your throat. But how would you feel about this Russian import? Do you think the 34-year-old Iyla Kovalchuk, last time you seen him, he probably played for the New Jersey Devils, and he was sitting there lighting the lamp for the Devils. Would you be interested in him coming to Detroit, and do you think he'd be a fit if he wanted to come back to the NHL to play for your Detroit Red Wings?
Wow, hearing that question, the first thought that came to my mind was, this is a Red Wings move. Look what they've done in years past. They've traded good talent, and you've seen it now. There's a couple players that are producing in the postseason for teams that are advancing that the Red Wings let go for guys that are rentals. So you look at it and you go, oh my gosh, from the Alfredsons to the Modanos. The Red Wings have tried this before. They've tried to scrape up the old players and see what they got left. Do you remember a couple of them that have been really successful that have helped this team propel them to deep runs? Not too many. There was one, Dominik Hasek, but there's no Dominik Hasek available in this crop of talent that you're trying to scrape up. So do I think Iyla Kovalchuk would fit in Detroit? He could have a couple productive games and things like that. But for a season, the first thing that would happen is he'd play 5-6 games and then have a groin injury, and then he'd be out. And then you probably look at the terms of his deal and you're like, damn, you offered him damn near $2.5 million? You can get a lot more out of these young guys if that's the route you're going to go in. I would nix the idea of bringing in Iyla Kovalchuk. I don't see the system being in place based on track record that the Red Wings are finding guys off the scrap heaps and they're coming in being productive. So I axe that plan. Go out there and continue to develop your young talent. And unfortunately, the thesis with the Red Wings and with many of the Detroit teams is we have to have some pain in the next couple of years. If you want some gain, we need some pain. You can't draft 9th through 15th and build your club. You got to draft in the top 5. And in order to draft in the top 5, Pistons, Lions, Red Wings, you got to have some pain. If the fans can weather the storm with the Red Wings in the next couple years, there's only one thing I would call for the Detroit Red Wings: pain.
There will be pain. You've heard of Lonzo Ball. You've heard of his dad, LaVar Ball.
Is he on the podcast? I think that he's gone everywhere, right? He might show up on this show.
We should invite him. LaVar Ball's kind of he is a gigantic quote machine. Recently, he took a shot at Michael Jordan, basically saying that Michael Jordan couldn't sell a $495 shoe.
What?
He didn't come into the league and didn't do the things that Lonzo did. Now, I'm not 100% sure what Lonzo has done. He played one season at UCLA, helped them get to the NCAA tournament, and then they sat there and they flamed out. That being said, LaVar Ball seems to think very highly of his son as they're selling shoes ranging from $495 all the way up to $900 for an autographed pair of the ZO2 Primes. Recently, they sat there and they claimed that they sold roughly 5,000 shoes in the first 2 days that they sat there and had the shoes prepared for sale. There's been some debate and some speculation. I kind of want to get your overall gauge on what you think of LaVar Ball.
I think you may know how I roll with LaVar Ball. Many people will say he's arrogant. Many people will say, shut this guy up, stop promoting him. One, the networks love him because he is a guy that says something. Now, you asked a great question on your Facebook wall, and those that are not privy to it, you asked, is this guy crazy or is this guy a genius? And I lean towards he's a marketing genius because you got to remember, what's he trying to do? He's trying to build a brand. He's trying his absolute best to say, hey, my big baller brand is something. And so he said, look, the advantages that I have are I set the price. I'm the boss. I'm the CEO. If the big baller brand was the sole avenue of his son's income, then he's stupid. Okay? So what he's doing is he's using the big baller brand to get himself in the news, to get himself some attention for his son, who's about to be a millionaire, not from his shoes. His son's going to be a millionaire based upon the check that he cashes from a basketball team. This can be used as just something to continue to grow. It can be used for something to continue to start the process. Because here's when you think about it, a lot of writers, a lot of media, a lot of bloggers, they don't even probably care to look at any sense of business. Let's say you start your shoe off at $80 and Lonzo Ball has an amazing, outstanding, Curry-like, phenomenal rookie season, right? The price of that shoe just goes up. Why have it go up to $160? Set the price high now. Those that want it now will get in high. The success of the baller brand is not going to be, on LaVar Ball going on all these shows. The success of that brand is going to be what Ball does, his son, on the court. He goes out there and balls on the court. That shoe for $500 now sells. Now you have another source of income that's not tied to nobody. So that's why a guy like you asked that question, because you're seeing it from what we do. We're not tied to nobody. Anything that we do, if it's successful, you and I benefit, and the rest of the guys in the crew. If it's not successful, then that's what it is. But nobody else has influence over a project other than you and I and the crew that we decide to work with. So is LaVar Ball a madman or a genius? He's a genius. It's marketing. It's an act. It's a shtick. Now, is it an elevated version of him? You damn well know this guy's a talker, and he's a big talker, and he's got an ego. But what he's doing, and as wrestling fans, we all know it, this is just an elevated version of his personality, and he's out there trying to shock the world with what he says. He knows that when he says stuff like, when he throws the name Michael Jordan into any sentence, it gets picked up. Whenever he talks about, his brand, people are talking about it. So I'm not into shutting people up. It's a free country. If his shoe is successful, he'll be a pioneer for young African Americans and young Americans as well, because then more people will do it. And instead of being, reliant on the man and sucking at the teat of Nike and Adidas and Under Armour and having them say, this is what your shoe is going to look like, he says, no, if I want to put a stripe on my shoe, or if I want a shoe with, whatever the logo is, he has creative control, and I respect pioneers that are trying to do something. But in the end, he's got to be realistic. If his son sucks at basketball, that brand will never get off the ground. He's a genius.
You brought up his son. You brought up Lonzo. And Lonzo seems like a really likable kid. Seems like a real likable guy. As the NCAA season continued along, he was interviewed multiple times. Seems like he's really humbled. Seems a little bit more down to earth, and maybe, I don't know if quiet's the right word for it, but he just seems a little bit more reserved, I think, is probably the best way to describe him. Do you think that LaVar Ball makes Lonzo Ball less likable because of everything that basically comes out of LaVar Ball's mouth? It's always some type of absurdity, and it's always in relation to whatever Lonzo is doing. And does it seem like LaVar is trying to live his life, live his dream through his son at this point?
Listen, it invites negative criticism, but if you're a professional athlete, hey, if you're going to be able to get, thrown into the fire, might as well start dealing with it right now from your dad. So this will be a good test for him to see how he handles some pressure. Listen, his dad's his own person. Look what happened. We have an example of this. Look what happened with the Williams sisters when their dad was coming up, right? He would dance on the court. He'd be seen in the stands, having a good old time, telling everybody, my daughters are the best. What ended up happening? His daughters are the best. His daughters, did some great things in the sport of tennis, and that talk went away. Now, is it abusive? No, because Ball's an adult now. He's going to fend for himself. So I'm always of the opinion that if there's a problem, then Lonzo Ball's got to deal with his dad appropriately. I don't view and I don't judge a man based upon the actions of another man. I judge Lonzo Ball based upon what he's going to do on the court and what he says. And by all accounts, seems like a good dude. And if he can sell a $500 shoe, hey, if you sell one, it's success. Hell, $500 for a shoe? It's not a $1,500 shoe like Kanye West and Perry are trying to, throw down people's throat. $1,500 for a shoe? Get the hell out of here. There was a line, though. There was a line for the Kanye messy shoe. Who would go pay $1,500 for a nasty shoe? There are crazy people in this world, but if there's someone that buys it, it's a good price. That's the definition of capitalism. Google it.
Speaking of the Z02 Prime, the shoe that Lonzo Ball is now supporting and marketing here, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to see it, but it's actually a really nice shoe. It's something that I would probably wear. It's something that you probably would wear. It doesn't have anything crazy or eccentric. It's a nice looking shoe that you could ball with on the court. Actually, it looks a lot better than whatever Under Armour is putting out for Steph Curry right now. Because again, he puts out another, I don't know if it'd be controversial, but it's just not a very appealing looking shoe. So Lonzo's sitting there promoting his new shoe. Do you have any interest in the Z02 and the fact that it's selling for $495?
I wish, man. I had an early pair of Jordans when I was a kid, and I got in trouble. A funny story, in that I wore the Jordans to church one day. And I wore the Jordans to church and a hat. And people were looking at me like, and my mom, your mother's like, no, you can't dress like that. And I'm like, 8, 9 years old. And I'm like, no, I want to wear what I want. I want to be comfortable. If the Lord wants me to pray, I'm going to be comfortable. When you're a kid, you come with some stupid ass arguments. But I wore Jordans. I had a pair of early Jordans. I wish I would have kept them. But I really never got into shoes. That wasn't my thing. Clothes and shoes wasn't my thing. I had an early pair of Jordans because I was a basketball fan. They were comfortable. But after that, I fell into reason in that it's simple. I mean, my parents would give me the lowdown. Why pay $150 for shoes when the same shoe you could find for $70 is more comfortable and fits? So they never really said, we can't buy you this. They said, look, just go try them out and see if a $150 shoe feels better and makes you float or does anything more than a $50 shoe. You come tell me. And I realized, you know what? Because I play tennis, I was actually more comfortable in running shoes that were in the neighborhood of $40. So I always stayed in the $40 to $80 range, and I damn near wear my shoes for 4 or 5 years max. So I wear them out, and I don't buy shoes. I'm not into it. I basically didn't even have a judgment on the shoe at all. People are saying it looks stupid and it looks, ridiculous. But for me, hell, if you design it and you make it and people buy it, that's fine. But I really don't have any judgments on the shoe at all because I'm not into it. I'm not into waiting in line for shoes. That's not me. You won't be seeing me, jumping in line for 4 or 5 hours for a pair of Lonzo Ball shoes. If I were, I probably would just stick with the name brands. Adidas, I like Adidas shoes, or Nikes. I'm down with that, and I like reasonable prices in the neighborhood of $4. If you can sell me a great shoe in the neighborhood of $40 to $60, and they're nice and they're comfortable, I'll look at it.
Gotcha. I think they're a decent looking shoe. I think they're pretty solid. You want a bonus question here?
Quickly.
What are your thoughts on the NBA playoffs right now? You've got the Cavs that are just sitting there running wild in the East, and in the West, you got Golden State just sitting there killing everybody. It looks like we're destined for Part 3 of Golden State v. Cavs.
Great question. I can sum it up like this. I'm excited for Wednesday night 2 NHL Game 7s. NBA, I'm in complete agreement with Charles Barkley. This has been awful. There's no real storylines. The games are not competitive. I'm just basically, like everybody said at the beginning of the year, I haven't tuned in to many of the storylines outside of Isaiah Thomas, and I'm looking forward to maybe Cleveland versus Boston to see how that series is going to play out. But by all accounts, most people are thinking it's going to be Cleveland versus Golden State. And so I'm going to tune in and invest in that. If you're a fan of sports, you need to be tuning into the NHL playoffs. 2 great Game 7s on Wednesday will have happened. It's a great time. There's great storylines, great games. Ottawa versus New York was a great series. You got the storyline with the Nashville Predators. NHL is where it's at, and Charles Barkley said it best. The NBA has a problem in that it's not watchable, it's not competitive, so you don't invest. Wait till Game 1 of the NBA Finals to maybe see if it's going to be competitive, and many people said the same thing about the Finals last year. All the games were blowouts. There was not really that many competitive games. So, in my opinion, the NHL is doing it right, and it's a great playoffs this year. So, I'm investing more right now in my time. If it's not Detroit sports, NHL playoffs, baby, it's where it's at.
Thanks for taking us down that dark corridor in your brain. We appreciate it.
No doubt about it.
Good stuff, dude.
All right, final timeout. Come back. We'll finish this podcast. A little bit shorter podcast. We're going to try because of the things we're doing here on the Fi Network. We're going to finish this podcast with the Doc and Jock Wrestling Report. Stay with us. Let me tell you about FanaticU.com. They're Detroit Sports' official outfitter and the official outfitter of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. They've been a fine sponsor of ours since the early inception of this project. And all we ask is, hey, there are companies that have taken chances on podcasts, and we appreciate those that do. FanaticU.com has been a fine supporter of our project since early on in the project. And so if you're looking for some sweet sports swag, go check out one of the great locations all across Metro Detroit. They got great sports signings. They bring in athletes. And they also are similar to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, and they allow their supporters and ours to go and be part of the action. And so if you follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast, you've seen several times where we've had contests where we've been able to pick winners to go meet some of your favorite athletes. We got a chance to have supporters go out and get free stuff because of our relationship with Fanatic U. Support those who support us. Visit FanaticU.com. Welcome back. Thank you for finding this fine project. Thank you for downloading across our various platforms. Good stuff. That's how we can get our name out there. That's how the doc can talk to George Lopez, the comedian, about helping the Detroit Lions. Great stuff. So continue to follow us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast for all the news and notes and happenings. You can follow Adam at Adam RSTROZ. Here at the network, we pride ourselves in being very interactive. We love having debates, good or bad. If you're a troll out there and you want to get a reaction, shoot us a message. We read it. We like it. We don't really block too many people. We enjoy the banter that we have during the games, and that's what makes it fun. That's what makes us, I think, a step above others, is that we're there and we're committed. I think that's the thing, is that we're committed to having these discussions with our supporters because it makes it really, really fun.
You know another way you can support us?
How's that?
You can sit there, you can check out our swag. We've got gear coming.
Swag?
We got gear coming every single week, new stuff, new designs. We've got a little thing set up here with teesprings.com. You can check out some of our shirts. If you're a Michigan fan, we've got our DSP Harbaugh Mania shirt. We've got one that just basically supports the podcast, says Detroit Sports Podcast, and some script right across the front. If you are not a fan of this Detroit Tigers bullpen, of course, we got the DSP Not My Bullpen. That seems to be a favorite that's going around right now. And if you do love Two Bad Hombres like I do, be sure to pick up that gear as well. So check it out, teesprings.com. You can also check us out on our Twitter or on our Facebook page.
We're not selling our shirts for $100, are we? $20,
no,
affordable.
$20, yeah.
$20. And that's how we keep this thing independent. So for those that say, oh, you guys are all about money. No, we're about, look, if there's something that people want, people have messaged us. People have said, hey, you guys have swag. And so when people ask that, then it's, that it was market driven. And we said, hey, that's an affordable way to help our supporters kind of support us. So, hey, go check it out. It's a great way to support our fine project and how we can stay independent. Let's get into the wrestling report. Something about going overseas makes the product a little bit better. I thought Raw was pretty interesting this week. I know that a lot of people are saying that, it is stereotypical. It is not original to have all the heels continue to lose by DQ, by breaking the rules and things like that. But that is a tool used by the WWE to elevate a heel in terms of having matches. And I know it gets redundant because you and I watch so many matches that it's redundant to have the heel draw heat from, punching a guy in the corner and having the ref go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then cheating or interrupting other matches or things like that. I think what Raw is suffering from is a lot of cheap heat. And they got to find new creative outlets to get a heel over. And that's something that it takes writers, it takes the personality, it takes the talent to do. It's cheap to just have the guy keep getting disqualified or the girl go out there to the ring and be a bad person and break the rules and get disqualified. I think promos can be used. I think there are other creative outlets that the behind-the-scenes people can do. And I think one underutilized thing is vignettes. Interviews. I know they like to do the interviews where the bad guy comes in and interrupts it, but I think vignettes, taking it personal, maybe taking it outside the arena, taking it a little bit away from the confines of the building that you're in. Do some more vignettes, some things where, a bad person like Nia Jax just goes to the supermarket and rips off something like that to elevate the characters other than what they've been doing. So other than that, though, I thought Raw was outstanding. I thought the storylines were continuing to be elevated. I like kind of where things were going. So I thought overall Raw was good except for the ending. I thought Bray Wyatt and Dean Ambrose kind of were disappointing in the main event. I thought that based upon their chemistry and their experience as wrestlers, they could have did a much better job in that main event. I kind of thought it came off as kind of like a main event match, not even a WWE main event match, like an undershow, not a match that's worthy of Raw. So that's how I left Monday Night Raw.
I think at this point with Dean Ambrose, it almost feels as though he's been on a downward slide since he's went on Stone Cold's podcast. And Stone Cold basically called him out for being lackadaisical and not really sitting there putting the required effort. And I think you're starting to see some of that seep through with the way
matches,
he's being booked. Look, the match with Bray Wyatt, it was boring. I'm not sure. You seem to be more high on Raw than I was. I thought Raw was actually really, really boring. I find myself really uninterested through most of it. I find myself doing other things or working on other stuff or getting up and just doing things around the house, and it's like on as background noise. The one segment I really did enjoy, I enjoyed when Strowman came out. I enjoyed the way the crowd popped for Strowman. I thought that was great. I think the way, kind of like what you were talking, a way to get a heel over or to sit there and kind of get that reaction is booking them like you've seen with Braun Strowman. I mean, at this point, Braun Strowman is the most over heel. And I would sit there and I would say turn him babyface and let him have a run that way because the crowd is so into him because of the way he just destroys his opponents.
Did you not see that little thing on his elbow?
Well,
and it was devastating.
This is the thing. He's going to be sidelined now for at least 6 weeks.
Tough, man, yeah.
So now WWE is frantically trying to sit there and rewrite different scripts and trying to rebook their next coming events here. And the way this is looking, because Strowman was supposed to sit there and contend against Lesnar for the title. He was challenging for the title. And that's kind of how that was set up. In the meantime, Roman Reigns was sitting there trying to figure out what he was going to do. The way it's looking right now, a little inside information I got for you. It looks as though Finn Balor will now challenge Brock Lesnar for the title, which will be interesting because I don't know about you. I really do like Finn. I think Finn is great. I like when Finn comes out with his demon persona. I think it's outstanding. I pop really hard for it. I think it's great. I just don't know if Vince sees enough worth in a guy who's not 6'4" and doesn't weigh 235 pounds because Vince likes guys who are big. He likes guys who look like they're bodybuilders. And as cut up as Finn is, he's not 6'4" and he's not 235 pounds. All that being said, it looks like Roman Reigns, his deal with Braun Strowman for now is being backburnered because Braun's not going to be there. So Roman Reigns will now, it looks like, fight Bray Wyatt, which looks interesting. This is all going to happen after their upcoming pay-per-view that's going to be taking place here shortly. So these are two interesting storylines and kind of the way they're going. It looks like this might be interesting. It looks like this could be a fun little road to go down. As of right now, I'm really underwhelmed by what I'm seeing on Raw, and with Braun Strowman going away for at least 6 weeks, he was the main highlight that I took out of Raw. It's going to kind of suck now until he gets better, and hopefully these two story arcs can kind of carry this product for a little bit.
Now, the injury was a killer because I thought that you would say that you were excited by Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, because it has a feel of a big-time
it's good.
WrestleMania feud.
Every time they meet up, it's
important.
something awesome. Yeah,
it feels important. It's done well. It's going back and forth. It's being extended. I think the injury hurts it a little bit. Maybe you just have Braun Strowman come out there a little bit and talk and kind of still be part of the show and not just disappear. And maybe you take it to the level where he starts messing with Roman Reigns mentally or just kind of showing up at different spots, kind of like Chris Jericho did with Kevin Owens. You kind of get into the mental side outside of the wrestling ring.
This is when the psychology of wrestling kind of comes in. And hopefully they can do that well because that is one place where I feel like WWE, the further and further we get away from the Attitude Era and the further and further we get down this road with the new brand of the way WWE is scripted and wrote and produced, it seems like the psychology is always on the back burner. It's always an afterthought. It's always one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, well we could have did that, but we didn't do that. And if you're hearing anything, we've got a
construction.
We've got a maintenance guy outside sitting there doing stuff and throwing things around. I'm not sure if the mics are picking it up or not.
So what was your reaction about SmackDown? Because honestly, I was watching the Tigers. I was enthralled on Tuesday night. Didn't get a chance to watch too much of SmackDown. You said that it was, according to you, a good show. You enjoyed it, but one that if you missed it, wasn't a big deal this week on SmackDown.
Yeah, it was another one of those where I think SmackDown gets the most out of its talent. The way they book it, the way they present it. They are in London right now. So you knew you were going to get a SmackDown that was just kind of jam-packed with a bunch of guys on it because they're trying to show everybody off to the London crowd who doesn't normally get to see them up close and in person as often as the American crowd does. I thought the way that they booked it and the way that everything was kind of put together, it was good. Again, I don't necessarily think you missed anything. If you missed it, I think you can pick it up next week and you'll be okay. The one thing that I really took out of this is, and there's really two things I took out of this. One is Randy Orton and one is AJ Styles. At this point, I just feel like Randy Orton is probably the most boring WWE champion we've had in probably the longest time. He comes out, he looks totally disinterested, looks like he doesn't want to be there, it looks like he has to be there. He doesn't cut an engaging promo anymore. It's just, honestly, it's like watching paint dry, and it's super frustrating. I do enjoy Jinder Mahal, though. I think when Jinder comes out and he challenges him, and he's in his face, and he brings the Bollywood boys with him, I think it's interesting. I think it's good. I would like to see Jinder Mahal beat Randy Orton for the championship. I think that would be a good thing for WWE, because now you're going to put the title on a heel. You're going to let him have his run. I don't think he needs to necessarily do the whole I hate America, America's awful type thing. I don't think you necessarily need that. That looks like the direction they're going. But I think you got to get the belt off Randy Orton. It doesn't look like he's having fun holding the title. And that right there makes me less interested in him as a champion. On top of all that, it would appear that AJ Styles is having a little bit of a flip here. No longer a heel. He is being scripted as a face now. There was a 6-man tag where Randy Orton, Sami Zayn, and AJ Styles teamed up against Jinder Mahal, Kevin Owens, and who am I forgetting here? Baron Corbin. So, and Baron Corbin, I think's awful. I can't stand Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin busted up Sami Zayn, bloodied his nose. Was not a good punch that Sami Zayn had to take to the grill, but it is what it is. But I think it's interesting now that AJ Styles is being put as a face instead of the heel. And I have a question for you. Do you feel that AJ Styles do you like him better as a heel, or do you like him better as a face?
I like him better as a face because I think he enjoys walking to the ring. I think the crowd reaction is awesome. But most people say that working as a heel is easier, and you could make him a heel because he's talented with whatever he does. But for me, I like him as a heel. I like good guys. I like a guy that can be over. I like AJ Styles as a face, and I think that he can be a solid face of the company because they're going to a lot of heels. Who's a solid super face right now that just draws a huge pop when they come out? It seems like there's a lot of guys right in the middle where they're getting cheered and booed a la Roman Reigns. Not to that degree, but I like a clear-cut face right now. And right now, can you name one off the top of my head? A clear-cut face. I know the women have a bunch of them, but a clear-cut, Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins.
Yeah, Seth is now. Sami Zayn, but
not good enough. Yeah,
honestly, Sami Zayn doesn't get a push ever.
So right now they need a superstar face, and that's Braun Strowman, but now he's out. So I kind of like those guys that are just like superstars that get a crowd reaction. And right now what's going on is the crowd is cheering things that are opposite of what the WWE wants them to do. Kind of like Jinder Mahal, you know what I mean? They want to cheer Jinder Mahal because he's such a jobber and they're letting a jobber win, but he's going with the heel thing as well. So it's just kind of one of those things where WWE is, doing what they want to do, creating their characters, but I kind of want to see AJ Styles as a clear-cut face. But overall, how would you grade SmackDown this week?
Scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give it a 6.5, 7. Again, I thought it was good. As far as AJ Styles goes, I feel like he's more comfortable as a face. So with that being said, I think he comes off more believable, and I think he enjoys his time on screen more as a face than he does as a heel. I feel like as a heel, he was a little bit uncomfortable, and I think you could tell by his promos. So I think now his promo work, it's always been good, but I think it's much better now when he's a face because he's a little bit more comfortable in himself. The one thing that I am finding with SmackDown that I really do enjoy is I like the fashion files. Like where they take Breeze, where they take Breeze Dango and they sit there and they put him in these funny skits and let him do these weird things. I find Tyler Breeze and Fandango, just their chemistry together and their reactions with each other, I find them to be so entertaining. Like they just do the weirdest, funniest things, and it just makes me laugh. I crack up watching them. So it's going to be interesting. It would be cool if they were able to get the belts off the Usos. I think that'd be cool if we were to sit there and do a long story arc with the Usos, not just for this upcoming pay-per-view, but for, we'll do this upcoming pay-per-view, then whoever wins, the loser gets a challenge again for the rematch, and then maybe you've got offsetting wins there. Maybe you sit there and you culminate all this in one big, third time's the charm type of pay-per-view event. I think that'd be cool. I think that'd be interesting.
All right, great podcast, sir. I know it's an abbreviated edition, but we got what we need to get out of this. hey, I got a call time, so I got to get to business here.
Yeah, you
so
do.
Great effort. It was fun. Thank you for the patience. Check out our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, our Facebook page. I shared the link from the ticket in which I made the phone call and spoke to comedian George Lopez. Another thing on the list that we got to accomplish. It was fun. And the theme of the week is intergalactic efforts. It doesn't take that to enjoy this podcast, but it will take that to save the Lions. And if you watch the video, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Thanks again for your support. Cuz I appreciate you filming it. That was fun.
Outstanding, dude. It was a good time. Check out our swag at teespring.com and check it out on Twitter as well as our Facebook page. Go Tigers.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.